The East Coast is being pummeled with the power of a record-breaking superstorm. Rodanthe swept into pieces.
And this is what happens. Debris like pieces of the boardwalk have come for 3 blocks.
But it's practically right on that Jersey shoreline.
And right now, I want to talk to the people, if they still have electricity, who stayed behind on the barrier islands. We have reports of 5 feet of water in some places in Atlantic County, significant flooding in Cape May County and in Ocean County.
That pier is the lifeblood of Seaside Heights. That pier was beautiful. It had great rides. Every one of you people probably, or half you people here have been on that pier.
For many, this place is summer memories, a place their parents brought them and where they brought their own kids.
When something like that happens, creative minds compelled to do something with it, to make something beautiful out of it. It was an opportunity to create art.
At the municipal building in Belmar, they would say, sign up, we're going to give you a task, and then I would say, hey, I'll walk 16th again. And then I would walk up and down 16th, and you were supposed to hand out this literature, knock on the doors, and give the literature to like the older people if they were somehow stuck in their house or they needed something. The one day, it was like a rainy day, and it was still flooded in Belmar, so I did see a piece of the boardwalk, like a blue-gray section, I don't know, like this big, not really floating, but almost like floating down the road, stuck on the curb. And I was just kind of like in awe that all this wood was just, with all this history, was just being kind of literally washed down the road.
We figured the worst that would happen would be we'd lose power, there'd be a little bit of flooding. Nobody anticipated what was going to happen.
But we sat here and all we could hear was just the trees falling, boom, boom, boom. And we were just hoping one didn't hit the house.
What was really just startling were the dead fish. I mean, fish had washed all the way down. We're 4 blocks from the ocean and a block from the river. And it clearly was on the ocean, from the ocean. And beautiful fish perished. And you're just like, wow, this is just crazy.
I went out that following day and I was blown away by even us. We're 20 minutes inland from the beach, and the trees, the pylons, the roofs, the damage that was around here locally made me want to keep pushing further. So that first day after the storm, I went to Belmar and then rode from Belmar to Point Pleasant. From there, I actually I took 6 months off from work and pretty much went out and photographed every day. We took a plane with a friend of mine from All Air, and we basically started off, I guess West Long Branch, and we flew from there to Seaside. And of course, you don't realize the level, I guess, the degree of the damage until you're actually above it. Because when you're in it, everything looked a mess. But when you were above it, you could see how storm surges had decimated like 2 blocks. And then the following block looked like it hadn't been touched. Of course it had, but by comparison, when you're up that high, some of it was just as if we actually said it looked like a giant with a mallet had come through and just took swings as he was walking, because this was gone, and then that was still there, and then the next one was gone. So Corey and I were introduced by a mutual friend. They figured that we'd get along. We were both creating art from the storm and about the storm, and we hit it off really well. And he was having trouble getting access to some place. There was just a blanket no. So I called a couple of the chiefs of police and got access. And then obviously I took him then, and we both went. He was able to collect, and I was able to keep photographing.
This is where I keep all the wood. It's my stash of wood from the storm. This piece is a piece I just got about 2 weeks ago. The wood that my buddy Don used to screw to the windows and the doors at the front of the Eastern Line surf shop that's right on like 16th and Ocean. He screwed all the wood to the windows to stop the surge from coming inside the surf shop. Unfortunately, in his case, portion of the boardwalk did breach it, and his surf shop was filled with sand and destroyed. But I did get this, the plywood from here, and I did recently make a cool piece for him with some of this wood. It's not always the best memories for him, but he kind of understands the meaning behind it, and it's not really about the damage, it's remembering what happened. This is the old boardwalk in Belmar. All these gray sections are the big heavy resin wood that used to be, not wood, but resin. What else are we gonna have? There was an old shop across the seaside boardwalk called the Golden Whale that was closed down, but when Sandy came in, it really closed it down. And this was the sign, the hours sign for the Golden Whale. It used to say sail on it or something. And it said nautical finds, but I only have the little bit left of it now because I was using it all. And then all this wood here, the colored wood here, is from the Sandcastle shop in Seaside. So it's just pirates something. But I got good orange wood, turquoise wood, all different colors. This is a bench. One of the people that I was in their house in brick, and I made a piece for them with their address on. This is part of their benches in the back from a home demo.
As I'm putting the pieces together, I keep in mind a lot of times where they're going to go, or the piece I just made out of the plywood that was screwed to the windows of Eastern Line Surf Shop, and I made it for the owner, Don, just as like a gift to say, hey, thanks for everything you do for the community, everything you do for Belmar. He's the one that puts together the Belmar Surf competition every year. So I tried to utilize all the wood that I had found from his specific area to make a piece for him. It does have more meaning to me when I make it if I know exactly where that piece of wood's coming from that I pull out of the basement or out of the deck here to put in a piece. And when I give it to someone, I try to explain to them. They already know some of the meaning behind the wood. The people like, oh, I lost my house, I lost this, my neighbors lost this. And they're like, I'm so glad that you're making something out of this, to help people get not a positive memory, but just a memory, of what happened and all the devastation. But when I'm making the pieces, to me, it just means a lot to use everything that I found. Nothing, I'm not going to the store, I'm not buying anything. I always turn the piece around and show them, I go, this metal is what I bought. This metal, these 2 hooks and those 2 screws is all I bought. Everything else I found, everything else is laying on the side of the road or in a landfill.
It's really important for us to keep the history of this building intact as much as that we could. Things like this bar, it's all made from reclaimed and repurposed wood. The tap room, kind of the communal bar, beer tables that we have, beer hall tables, it's also made off the rafters, off reclaimed wood. Corey Hudson was a local artist who I was familiar with his work. Around that same time, Corey suggested, hey, maybe I could do something with some of the wood in the bakery for the brewery. And I thought, yeah, that'd be great. Initially, I thought, many of his pieces are not very, very big or weren't traditionally very big. I said, maybe we'll make us a little small sign or something. But instead, we got this big bad boy right there, which has, interesting enough, become a focal point of the brewery. And I think it's just tremendous, what he does because it's so layered. His work is very layered. There's a story within a story. You're not just looking at a logo of a brewery, which could be cool enough, made out of wood, but it's also made with wood from throughout the bakery. There's literally a piece of wood from almost every room in this bakery and that sign. And when folks hear that, we often tell them, if not always tell them when they take the tour of the brewery, they're super appreciative of that, and they get it, they understand it, and it feels like it's not a complete loss, I guess is the best way to put it. The bakery is not really gone in its entirety, and folks are really happy about that.
I had the idea to plaque every piece, to put a plaque on it, just to make it more of not as much a piece of an art, as just more of a remembrance of what had happened, or in remembrance to things that had happened. So in the beginning, I had the wood all arranged in sections. I had wood from Belmar in one part, wood from Asbury, My buddy was a contractor in Beach Haven. I had wood from Beach Haven. So I had different sections underneath the deck here with wood and piles. So I initially thought, well, I'm going to start making these plaques. And I was like, I just was kind of throwing on what I could do with the plaques. But the meaning behind the plaques, each plaque in the beginning, I wanted to have the city that the wood was recovered from on the plaque. And I wanted to start with the number 1, obviously, and work my way up. So in the beginning, there was the Belmar plaques, 1 through 50. There was plaques that said Asbury Park, and it was like 1 through 50. As I went along, I wasn't able to have enough wood from certain areas to keep the wood on one piece just from one area. So I kind of had to change the wording on the plaques eventually to Sandy Storm, New Jersey, because I didn't have enough wood from one area to make the art pieces from just distinctively one area of New Jersey. But in the beginning, when they were all numbered, Beach Haven, Belmar, Asbury, that pretty much just meant all the wood from, not all, I shouldn't say, the majority of the wood from that piece of art that you were getting had the wood from the town that was listed on the plaque.
We would go down and, you just look at things and see like interesting shells, and it was like, this is a once in a lifetime, I hope, experience. Maybe I'll pick up a few pieces of the benches that were sitting around, and because they are so iconic for Avon. And I found some really interesting pieces in terms of the bench itself. So, I just picked them up, stuck them in my pocket, and brought them home. I had them on a shelf just as a reminder, and kept looking for different things that actually went. The benches all had plaques that families had purchased for people in their loved ones, people who had passed away, and a lot of people's benches were missing in their plaques. So we would go down looking, because stuff moved. You didn't know which direction any of this stuff would go, so we would go down to look. A friend of ours down the street, his plaque was missing, so we were always keeping our eye out for that. So, and then I'd go out another day and I'd find more pieces of the bench, our benches, and it's like, oh, this one's more interesting than what I had. And, I didn't know what I was going to do with them. One day I noticed that somebody had made some votives with wood that was from boardwalks all along the shore. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Maybe I can do something like that with my pieces of bench. And because my pieces of bench are this aquamarine color, so very distinctive, and it's like, oh, that could be sort of fun. Rebecca, my daughter, had found this artist who was creating art out of the debris really from the storm. So my son Julian worked with this artist to come up with a piece using the wood that I had found and wood that had come from other parts of the shore. This was the Christmas gift that the two of them gave my husband and I for Christmas.
The best part is when somebody asks me to do a piece when they let me in their house after it's been destroyed, and I'm able to pull some wood out of their house, and then, like I said, and to say thank you to them for just letting me go into their house when I make a little plaque that has their address on it. Giving the people that piece is way beyond anything, because the people they can't believe that. They're like, no, you don't want anything from this house. It's just junk. You don't want anything out of here. It's all going, I said, just let me look in there. You want some kind of memory? And they're like, yeah, but I don't think you can use anything. And I'll go in there, just find a few little pieces, a little tile, a little something. But when I throw it on the piece and then I give it to them, a lot of times they're like, oh. They can tell exactly where that little tiny piece of wood came from. That's just in the cases where people, let me in their houses to pull the wood out. But as far as the bigger pieces, the pieces I'm making for the shows or the events, I just get a lot of positive feedback from people saying, hey, I saw you a piece in that of charity auction the other day. I saw you did a piece for these guys. I saw you made something for them, and I'm glad that you're at least using this wood for something, opposed to just letting it go to waste.
My grandparents have lived in the town of Avon forever. When he retired, he worked as a badge checker. When my grandparents passed away, those benches ended up going on, and they put the memorial plaques. We got one for them. And every year, now that we come down, we always go down and sit on the bench. It's kind of like sitting with family. It was hard. It was just, everything was everywhere. I grabbed a couple people. We went up to the beach and I checked for the bench, and we couldn't find it. Then all of a sudden, we saw one that was broken but leaned. It just happened to be his bench. So ran back into my car, grabbed some tools. The Class 2s came by, gave us a hassle, just doing their job, but they gave us a little bit of a hassle, told us to get out of there. And I'm like, I'm with the fire department, I'm with the special ops team, it's okay. And he's like, no, I got to do my job. As soon as he went down the block, we all jumped out of the car again, went real hard. Myself, my cousin, and my girlfriend, we just ripped it apart, grabbed all the pieces to our bench. We just wanted to keep it.
I love what he's done with isolating his collections of wood and localizing them, you know, localizing seaside wood, localizing Belmar wood, localizing Lavalette wood. It makes it so much more of a personal touch to see that all this was just heaps of rubbish and rubble, and he's created such beautiful things out of it. So I can't really tell you what his motivation is, other than all of our motivation, and that's to do something awesome with something terrible, you know.
This piece is number 57, and what he wrote on the back here is number 57 in the series of sandy storm pieces made from wood from multiple areas. And then his signature with the wave, whether that's his signature or he did it because of the wave on front. And then he goes on to say, describe the piece. All green is from wood found in Avon after the storm from the beaches. The white wood is from the marina parking lot pile in Belmar. The background wood and frame is found near the casino in Asbury Park. So it represents about a 3.5 mile stretch of ocean and different pieces from it. This was the some of the original bench material at the boardwalk, and that it's preserved, and the fact that the neighboring town's debris was picked up and used to make this piece makes it really, I think, unique, because we helped clean out houses in Belmar, and so having the debris from there in the form of the wood used, we do a lot of volunteer work in Asbury Park, so having wood that came from there makes it really meaningful in a way that the artist, I'm sure, had no idea.
I guess it's in the shape of, I guess the waves coming in, signifying the big waves that knocked over the boardwalk. It's just pretty cool, because now I got, for lack of a better word, our family's going to be up on the wall. I don't know the way to put it.
And it always gives me a good feeling that at the small, you know, I can't do much about the storm. I mean, there was $72 million in damage from Sandy. You know, the little tiny bit of good that I can do from a little bit of wood, from a little bit of anything, I mean, as much as I can do. It's not gonna help $72 million worth of damage, but at least it's gonna do a little bit of something. Even if it's a little bit of something just for one person, you know.